Hello, everyone, and we are back. If this is your first time joining us, thank you so much. You are in for a fantastic first session. If you have been joining us all of today and yesterday, thank you so much. You're still going to see a fantastic session. I'm Heather King, Managing Director for the Shared Services and Outsourcing Network in the Americas. I'm thrilled to welcome you here today, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to this next session. But before I do, just a couple of things to note. Please remember that they want to answer your questions. I know personally, Julie and Akhilesh are fantastic speakers, and they have a ton of knowledge, and they want to answer your questions. So make sure you put those into the chat box. Also, remember that after this session, we're going to have our demo drive, and a lot of our sponsors are going to have videos for you to watch, and you can win a ton of prizes, but you have to be there to participate, including apexanalytix, who's hosting this session right now. And remember, every time you take a meeting from one of our sponsors or another practitioner, every time you go to a session like this one, ask a question in the chat box. You are entered to win our grand $2,500 gift prize, which includes $300 cash and a ticket to our September Shared Services and Outsourcing Week. All right, well, that's all that I wanted to remind everybody about. I know I've been reminding over and over and over again, but repetition breeds habit. So now, without further ado, don't get duped. How PepsiCo is getting rid of duplicate vendors and duplicate payments from the fantastic Julie Becker, Accounting Operations Senior Manager with PepsiCo. And oh, there they are right there. Akhilesh Agarwal, the SVP Global Business Partner Technology Solutions for apexanalytix. Julie, Akhilesh, I hand it over to you. Ooh, you're still on mute though.
Thank you, Heather. So this is Akhilesh Agarwal, really glad to be on this conference with all of you. I'm Senior Vice President and CIO for apexanalytix. And under my role, I handle all of the product development and implementation for the Apex suite of products that we'll be talking about today. So really glad to join all of you today. With me, I'm joined with Julie Becker, and she's a Senior Manager for Accounting Operations at PepsiCo. So having said that, I would like to ask Julie to share a bit about PepsiCo.
Thank you, Akhilesh. It's a pleasure to be here today. And I've been with PepsiCo for about 8 years now, and it's a fantastic company. Of course, one of the world's favorite companies with very well-known brands, including, besides Pepsi, Quaker, Tropicana, Gatorade, and Frito-Lay. We earn more than $67 billion a year. We have $23 billion brands. We operate in over 200 countries and have more than 265,000 employees. We're constantly continuing to build upon our portfolio. Last year, we added Rockstar beverages and Better For You foods to our lineup. So companies always looking to innovate our brands and build them. And if you'll go to the next slide, Akhilesh, one thing that we're really proud of besides our products is the recognitions that other organizations have given to us. For instance, being among the world's most admired companies, best places to work, world's most ethical companies. These are distinctions that are very important to PepsiCo. We have very strong values that are really fed from the top down and very important to all that we do, really infiltrate all of our activities. And so wanted to be sure to call out some of these awards because we are very proud of them.
Thank you, Julie. A bit about Apex and our ultimate supplier management solution. So Apex offers a variety of services. One of them is Apex Recovery. And Apex Recovery is accounts payable audit for Fortune 1000 companies in the world. That's commercial AP audit. And we find duplicate payments, overpayments, pricing errors, statement credits that may have been previously unapplied. Using First Strike, which is our one of the flagship products, and we use it internally and also make it available as a subscription to do the accounts payable audit. So First Strike is handling that process, and we prevent over $3 billion of overpayments on an annual basis. We also have Apex Portal, which is one of the best in class supplier relationship management and risk management solutions out there. And the goal over here is it's for every one of your suppliers and 100% of your suppliers, which can get adopted through this Apex Portal. In the back end of Apex Portal and First Strike suite of products, we use another tool called smartvm. SmartVM is also available as a subscription for direct access. And the goal for SmartVM is it is the world's largest supplier database, having golden records of more than 32 million suppliers, and it's growing. And what we do with SmartVM is we put in all the existing data, we validate it, enrich it, and transform it to a golden record, and it's updated 24/7. We also do more than 10 million plus supplier communications on an annual basis, and we cover 98% of global trade languages. So, Julie, can you cover a bit about the numbers for PepsiCo and how your supplier onboarding process works?
Sure. So we currently, the North America Shared Services Organization, of which I am a part, is responsible for $38 billion in spend annually. We do operate in 3 different ERPs, 2 instances of Oracle and 1 of SAP. We are in the process of migrating to a single instance of S/4HANA, which will be fantastic. That will take several years to get us there. So we continue in the current environment for a while yet. We have almost 9 million invoices that run through our operations every year, and that includes about almost 500,000 manual invoices. So we still have a lot of manual entry keying in that our team is responsible for. And each year we're adding about 7,000 new vendors across our 3 systems. So that too is a very manual process right now. We are fortunate to have the Apex Audit Recovery service as well as smartvm that we'll be chatting about today to help us manage some of these manual processes. So speaking of the audits, we have a really good accuracy rate with our processing. We're at about 99.97%. So really strong, but still when you consider the volumes, that still does leave room for error, and we still do have cleanup and resolution that we have to work. Now from the previous audit cycle, we did see a 30% improvement in our accuracy rate. So what we've been able to do with the feedback received from Apex is we've been able to work with some of our upstream partners to improve processes, improve our own processes, and through that we've been able to improve the accuracy rate and get it even closer to 100%, but not there yet. There are still opportunities, and so we're continuing to learn as we go through the audits with Apex.
Thank you, Julie. So I wanted to talk about something called the deployments spike. So it's very important to automate the processing of invoices, especially with paperless invoices. So as we go down the path of automation and improvements, check tampering is still the #1 method of payment fraud, right? So with the improvement in the deployments of new tools and technologies to reduce paper, that is one of the key aspects. Now, a recovery client of ours moved to a very well-known leading e-invoice tool. And when that move was happening, they also enrolled in the services, audit services provided by Apex on the accounts payable side. And what we learned in that audit period is as this particular client was deploying the new system, there was a big spike in potential overpayments, which could have been prevented if we had known about it earlier, right? So our recommendation is to always go through an audit recovery cycle when you're especially working on deploying newer technologies, because as we introduce new technologies to existing environment, the chances of something going wrong is very high, right? As we migrate data to new systems or we provide more automation, and especially with technology, what happens is if there is a defect in a process or a software, with increased automation, the impact of that defect increases and impacts the entire accounts payable. So the recommendation over here is to be aware of the deployment spikes and to prepare for it going into the deployment of new softwares or technologies to prevent this from happening.
Yeah, so I will reiterate as well, and certainly we'll be counting in great measure on the audits as we are entering into those migrations. It'll be a three-phase process to move to S/4HANA, so they will be even more important than ever to make sure that we're not letting things fall through the cracks as we go through that process. So as we look at the results of the audits that Apex has performed for us over the last few years, we do see some patterns. As I mentioned, there's still a lot of manual processing that our teams do. And so we see things like invoices being keyed in incorrectly, invoice numbers being misread, an I for a 1 or a 0 for an O, things like that. Again, we have a very, very good accuracy rate, but nonetheless, those mistakes do happen until we have fully automated and fully OCR technology in place, which I'm not sure if we'll ever be 100% there, but until that day, we will continue to see these kinds of opportunities. Another pattern that we've seen in the audits is the existence of duplicate vendors in our vendor master. So again, that setup process for us is very manual, and we do have different records for different remit locations, and just over time, we've seen the accumulation of noise in the system, vendor records that are either duplicate or no longer correct, no longer current. And this just creates more opportunity for processing errors, for the invoice to be posted to the wrong vendor or to more than one vendor. And so this is something that we definitely have identified as a big opportunity for us, and that's why we have subscribed to the smartvm service. And through that, we're able to upload our data dumps from our different systems of our existing vendors. And the smartvm tool is able to look across that data and identify potential duplicates. And then we can review the results and determine if, yes, those are definitely duplicates, and then we can go into our system and do the necessary cleanup. So that for us has been huge because our databases are so massive. We have hundreds of thousands of vendors, and we just never have had a way of being able to compile the data and really scrub it and analyze it. And so that's what smartvm has provided for us, and it's been a huge help.
Thank you, Julie. So talking about smartvm, so how does the system work? So smartvm was developed because we understand that the vendor master data inherently has very poor quality in most companies out there. And this was also resulting in, for example, B notices from IRS, or prohibited vendors getting on your vendor master and you start doing business with them. In case of PepsiCo, due to duplicate vendors, it was resulting in overpayments that could have been prevented and improved, and smartvm helped PepsiCo with that use case. And what is more increasingly more prevalent these days is payment fraud due to bank account changes. So smartvm is now also able to not only validate the bank master on a global basis, but also match the account number with the name of the vendor. And we can do this particular validation for the United States, Sweden, India, and we are working on getting other countries onboarded with it. Globally, we integrate with 650 external data sources, which includes government organizations, regulatory authorities, and third-party sources. And we have over 32 million golden records connected to various Fortune 500 and 2000 companies. So how do we use smartvm in real life? So I talked about all of these integrations that you see on the screen. Um, so a real life use case is, first we load all of your vendors into the smartvm. We go through a series of validations to find out how good the existing data quality is. And as we go through the process of validations, we find either a pass or a fail. But in a lot of cases, we also find missing information which smartvm can help append, and it results in enriching your database. So if you don't have a contact email of a supplier, we could help with that, and so on and so forth. It also helps find duplicate vendors. So like in case of PepsiCo, we found duplicate vendors and help prevent overpayments. And a lot of clients these days are also having a great initiative about diversity programs. So think about smartvm helping you out in terms of diversity, finding how many existing suppliers are diverse, or potentially you may want to search on new diverse suppliers as you evaluate doing business with new suppliers. So that's how smartvm can help, and there are so many different use cases where you can apply the functionality. So having said that, I would take a few minutes and walk all of you through the smartvm demo, and then we'll come back and take a few questions. So switching to the smartvm application, it is a multi-tenant application, web-based. So as you enroll in the subscription, you can get easy access to this application running in the browser. So you don't have to install anything in your environment for smartvm to work. And if you don't have IT resources available, that's not a problem. As long as you're able to extract data from your ERP system and upload it within this application, you're able to use the system. Once we upload the data, we create something called a run. So you can create multiple runs as you go through the process of cleansing your vendor master at different frequencies or intervals. So once a run is created, it shows the number of records loaded, and also it kind of quickly validates what your existing data quality looks like. So as the run is created, it validates all the columns that are required for the validation to work, and it shows if there are any missing columns. You get to see that up front. There is also a setting screen where you control what the run will actually do. So because we connect to 650 global data sources and we have 32 million plus golden records available locally in our database, we can do a lot with your data set. So at a header level, which is the vendor master, we can validate whether it's a known entity or not, meaning is your supplier doing business with other Fortune 1000 companies? So that gives you a reduced risk on doing business with that known supplier. We do the duplicate checks. We do politically exposed persons checks, politically prohibited list checks against OFAC and 89 plus additional lists like the World Bank, the CIA, the FBI watch list, and so on. We match vendors against EPA list, healthcare violations list, uh, duplicate check with the fuzzy match, as I talked about earlier. Then on an address match, we will validate the addresses. We'll enrich the data where we have components of addresses missing, or just call it out if the address validation completely fails. Similar thing on the bank validations. On a global basis, we'll validate SWIFT codes, IBAN numbers, the bank routing numbers. But in addition, we do the bank number validation for US and India and Sweden. Then on the contact level, we'll validate the email addresses, we'll validate the phone numbers. We do global tax validation for more than 56 countries worldwide, and we are constantly adding more countries. So for Australia, United States, Malaysia, Canada, and the list goes on, we'll validate these tax IDs through the tax authorities. Then we also classify your vendors into what type of products and services they are providing. So SIC codes and NAICS codes. And lastly, the supplier diversity classification, which I talked about earlier. So once this validation process kicks off, you get a real-time view of the SmartVM in action. And as it goes through each type of data set, you'll get these green check boxes where the run is now successfully completed. Lastly, you get a preview and a dashboard of what the results look like. So after loading all of your existing data set, you get a summary count on how many records you loaded, but most importantly, the validations, the results of the validation. So for example, out of the vendors that I loaded in this run, 81% are not duplicates, but approximately 18.08% are duplicate vendors. SmartVM known entity check, most of these vendors are known, but some of them are maybe very small vendors, or only you are doing business with that vendor compared to other Fortune 500 companies and 1,000 companies. Prohibited list check, address validation, pass fail, and the list goes on. So in terms of banking, we are able to validate the bank master. So you can cleanse up the bank records in your ERP systems, person records, phone records, and the list goes on, right? So having run SmartVM, you can take advantage of making sure your existing data is good. You know where there is bad data, and SmartVM allows you to fix that data set. There will always be certain instances where data cannot be fixed or we don't have information to append. And in those cases, you have additional options in this tool. One of those options is push to the Apex portal platform. So any data which still needs to be cleansed or where you need to collect additional information, we can push it to an Apex portal environment where onboarding notification can go out to the supplier, which says we are doing an audit of the vendor master, your data is missing, please log in and fix it. So in all cases, SmartVM can help you cleanse your vendor master 100% of the time using one of these options. So that's a very small and quick preview of the SmartVM tool and its capabilities. So having said that, I'm going to switch to our presentation and keep rolling. So in the end, I would like to invite Julie again on, sharing her story on duplicates and why is it important to do a recovery audit.
Just for the reason stated, that it helps to do that work up front and to be constantly vigilant, because there are so many opportunities for error, and it's getting harder and harder after the fact to try to clean something up, resolve it, to get the funds back if they've been overpaid, to unravel what happened in the system. And so by having not only the right controls in place, which are certainly extremely important, but also this monitoring and these tools and technologies that are available and services to help, continually scrub the data, look for these exceptions, look for errors, look for these patterns, because it's a constant challenge to identify the reasons, the root causes, and go after them and strive to improve accuracy and reduce the risk of these errors occurring. So it's a challenge that never fades. And with the introduction of new business lines or new technologies, new systems, a new wave of opportunities just arises for errors and these process opportunities. So can't stress enough how important these additional benefits are from tools and services like the recovery and smartvm. We are using them heavily and will continue to do so. And it is making a difference. And so we're really, we will continue to lean heavily on them as we move forward.
Thank you, Julie. And as you're going through your journey, you've kind of got a flavor of Smart VM. But long term, are you also considering the Apex portal environment or any similar tool?
We definitely are considering a portal. That for us is that last big piece that we need to enter the 20th century and really provide much more efficient means, not only for us internally and for our processes, but for our vendors too, to make the process easier for them to get set up as a vendor with us, to monitor their activity. So absolutely, it's something that we're looking to implement with the migration to S4HANA.
Thank you, Julie. So with that, we'll open up the floor to any questions, and we'll start answering them. So thank you so much, Julie, for taking us through your journey on how you used the Apex audit recovery and the SmartVM technologies.
All right, I'm going to jump in there, I guess. Before we jump into the questions, I just want to remind everybody that there's a poll in there right now from Apex Analytics, who have a ton of information that they want to send you and a bunch of different reports. So if you're interested in any of that additional information, they need to know it. So go on in there and click on the report that you're most interested in so that they know and they can get that across to you. Okay, so question for Julie. How did you get around your internal SOX controls when you're passing along very sensitive data to SmartVM?
Yeah, so we do have a very intense IT security process that any new vendor has to go through when we're going to be transferring files to them. So because we're already providing complete data files to Apex for the audit recovery, this was just an extension of that review that had already been completed by our IT security team. But absolutely, it's very intense. It takes several months. And there are a number of tests and interviews and that sort of thing that the IT group performs in order to approve that, that transfer.
Great. And what are you considering a duplicate vendor? Same name and same address? What if they have multiple remit addresses?
Yeah, for us, it's address and tax ID.
All righty. Akhilesh, does SmartVM validate the tax ID and name against the IRS? Yeah, that's a question.
Yes, it most certainly does. And not only we check against the name and the tax ID with IRS, IRS also happens to have a non-profit validation. So SmartVM helps with that as well. And in addition to the US tax validation, for more than 56 countries, we support the similar validation, right? So for Canada, for India, for Malaysia, South Africa, and the list goes on. All of European Union for VAT validation. And most recently, with the Brexit, the UK VAT validation moved out of EU. So SmartVM is able to directly work with the UK government for validation of that.
Gotcha. Okay. This might have to be our last question, but on average, how long does it take to implement, considering an ERP that's old and very customized? Do either of you or both of you have experience with this?
Sure. So I'll take on that first, and I'll let Julie share her experience too. So from an implementation perspective, there are two ways to implement. One is without integration, where we just load the data, which is available, and let SmartVM do its work, and you get the results as soon as it's finished. So that can be, a matter of extracting the data in a few days, making it run for maybe a week or less, and now you have the results. But outside of this, there is a full integration method, which is bi-directional, and you can import data from your ERPs, let it run, and send back the validation. There's also smartvm API available, which lets you integrate smartvm in real time with other tools and technologies. So that can take its own time, on an average between 1 month to 3 months, depending on what we are trying to achieve, right? So it's all about extracting data if we were doing no integration. And Julie, if you can share your experience too.
Yeah, and that's the approach that PepsiCo went with. We're simply, we didn't integrate, we're just uploading the files. And so, yeah, the implementation for us was very quick.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Julie. Thank you so much, Akhilesh. Thank you so much, apexanalytix. This was a great session. Remember, everybody, if you came in the middle or at the end or at the beginning and you want to see it again, this will be available on demand starting tomorrow. And again, apexanalytix has a ton of content that they want to be able to give to you if you want it. So make sure you go into the poll and click on whatever extra piece of content that you're looking for and go to their booth. I'm sure that if you wanted more than one, but you can only click on one, and you tell them that they would be more than happy to give you whatever it is that you're most interested in. And in just 9 minutes, we're going to be going into our demo drive, where I believe apexanalytix is participating as well. You're going to want to be there, and you're going to want to be there early, because we need to take attendance right away. Only the people who are there at the start are qualified to win all of the prizes that we have available. And I'll get into that in about 9 minutes. So make sure that you're heading on in there. Just go back into the schedule umbrella and click into the demo drive, and I will see you there in 9 minutes. All right, everyone. Thanks again, Akhilesh and Julie. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.